Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So last time we kind of stopped at the bottom of the page, didn't we? Um, should I ask if anyone kind of has any idea about what we talked about last time? Or I can try and give like a brief summary about it.
My last note is hayrat, perplexity.
Yeah, we got up to perplexity, and before that, he was talking about the Sheikh Al-Akbar was talking about, I mean, really the whole page, right? This whole page in Arabic is a commentary on this verse. لا تذرون آلهتكم ولا تذرون ودا ولا سواع ولا يغوث ويعوق ونسرا, right? And so the idols are the faces of the real, right? So they said in their makr, in their deception, they said, do not abandon thy gods, do not abandon, and nor should you abandon Wad or Suwa or Yaghuth or Ya'uq or Nasra. And so Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, the Prophet, his name, by the way, he has a cosmic name. He has a cosmic name. It's called Abdul Ghaffar. So Abdul Ghaffar, what he does is, now the time for patience has finished. The time for giving them chances is finished. So he prays against them. This is the first prayer. He prays against them. So he imprecates against them and asks for their punishment. So then he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lead them astray, right? This is وَقَدْ ضَلُّوا كَثِيرًا, right? وَلَا تَزِدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا ضَلَالًا, right? And then last time we talked about how does one perceive divinity in anything in the cosmos, but especially in the idols, right? Because Allah Ta'ala, He has a dhuhura, a manifestation in each thing. So the true wali, arif, muhaqqiq, the word muhaqqiq is so important. The one who's a verifier, he knows the realities, he has verified and tested the realities for himself. He doesn't just take it for someone else's word. No, he knows the realities. He knows that the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in those idols, but he says it correctly. He doesn't say it wrongly. Because if you say it wrongly, that shows your ignorance. Whereas if you say it correctly, you're a possessor of knowledge. And there's a gigantic difference between the two. Like, in other words, the difference between day and night. So when the real out of knower, the real out of verifier, the possessor, he says, I think it's up, right? Or is it down? So he says, قال بلى قال هذا مجلى إلهي. No, this is a locus for a divine manifestation. This is the locus of a divine manifestation ينبغي تعظيمه, which it is necessary to revere. فلا يقتصر. So he does not limit himself to one particular manifestation. No, he reveres the manifestation wherever it appears. فلا يقتصر. Wherever it appears. He knows that, right? But he still follows the Sharia. But then the opposite, the lowest kind of knower. So everyone's a knower of God, but not everyone. So there's two things. Everybody is a knower of God, even the most ignorant loser. Excuse me for using this word. Knows God. You can't not know God. So from the highest to the lowest, from the most despicable, despisable thing like a worm, to the most majestic spiritual entity like there's something called the world soul. Like, the cosmos has a soul, actually. So this is a Neoplatonism, and Sheikh Al-Akbar takes it on to the world soul, and even to the first intellect, the mightiest angel. Noon, وَقَلِمْ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ. Noon, they all know God, but in different ways. The highest knows God the most, and the lowest knows God the least, but everyone knows God. By the same token, you can't know God completely. So what is everyone because of that?
Idol worshippers.
Everyone's an idol worshiper, correct? Not in the lawful sense, not in the legal sense, not in the shari'i sense, because then we'd be running into contradictions. No. Everyone is a idol worshiper in reality because you worship the God that you know, who is a limited being, because you can't know God in his totality. You can't. Hence, Ibn Arabi says, therefore, there are nothing but idol worshippers in existence. Because you worship the God that you carved out with your mind. But some people worship the God that they carved out with their mind in a way that's lawful, according to God and his Sharia and his messenger. And some people do it in an unlawful way. So we're all idol worshippers. You can't run away from that. So then he says the lowest of the idol worshippers, if we're going to talk about idol worshippers, there's the highest and the lowest. The lowest one, فَالْأَدْنَى صَاحِبُ التَّخَيُّلَ. The lowest one is a possessor of imagination. He's someone who depends upon his imagination. There are amazing things about the imagination, and there are problematic things about the imagination. In this context, the problem with the imagination is that it does not grant verified knowledge. So he imagines, right, that divinity is in his idol. And so he treats it in a way that does not correspond with reality. But you see the motivation behind why the idolater does what he does. مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا يُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. We only worship them so that they might bring us closer to God, right? So that's in their imagination. In their imagination, these beings have the power to bring them closer to God. But only God decides how you get closer to him. They don't. So that's in their imagination. They're imagining that. Now, there's no comparison again between imagination and reality. So who's going to guide them from imagination? Let's call it false imagination. Who's going to guide them from false imagination to real tasting, real reality, where you taste reality? If someone has never eaten, I don't know if I gave you this example before, because you know how much I like food. If someone has never tasted, let's say, carrot soup before, this person has never tasted carrot soup before, right? And someone asks this person, describe to me what carrot soup tastes like. He's like, well, I don't know. I never tasted it. So he goes into his memory, into his memory bank. And he's like, what orange things have I tasted in my life? I've tasted oranges. Yeah, so maybe it's a little bit like an orange, because they both have the same color. But then again, I also saw that animals, rabbits, eat this vegetable. So is that relevant in some way? Could carrot soup be a little bit sweet? So you see the problems he runs into because he's never tasted carrot soup and how far away he is from explaining what it tastes like. Can you see that?
Yes.
So he's far, far, far away. And he almost looks ridiculous in trying to describe what carrot soup tastes like. So the analogy with that is trying to describe how divinity works, al-uluhiyya, trying to describe the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For someone who hasn't tasted it, you're going to be really wrong. So he is a possessor of imagination, right? And then he said, وَالْعَالَ الْعَالِمُ, then the highest knower, he knows that he's perceiving reality, but he says it correctly. وَالْعَالَ الْعَالِمُ يَقُولُ إِنَّمَا إِلَهَكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَاللَّهُ أَسْلِمُ. He says that your God, the one that you're worshiping, is only one God. Doesn't matter what God that is. Is it Wad? Is it Suwa? Is it Jesus Christ? Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam? Is it Baal? Is it the Ajal? Is it Krishna or this or that? Your God is one God, not a separate God apart from Allah. It's one God. فَلَهُ أَسْلِمُوا. So submit yourselves to the hu, the huwiya, the invisible dimension of God. فَلَهُ, lahu is what? So فَلَهُ, so to him. Him is the pronoun of absence. It's the pronoun you don't see. So submit yourselves to God's huwiya. The huwiya is the symbol for his abseity. What's his abseity? His he-ness, the essence. To his invisible dimension. Submit to that. فَلَهُ أَسْلِمُوا حَيْثُ ظَهَرَ, wherever he appears. So if he appears from one manifestation or another, then you should have reverence for that manifestation and submit yourselves to God. وَبَشِّرْ الْمُخْبِتِينَ, so then give glad tidings to the mukhbitin. We talked about them last time briefly, right? They are a category of saints. The mukhbitin are those, it's related to the word khabata, right? Which means khamada. It's when you have a fire and you're trying to bring down the flames. So you're kind of like extinguishing the flames of a fire, but you don't extinguish them completely. You extinguish the flames so you get these glowing embers. So there's still a little bit of heat. That's khabata. That's khamada. Okay, so give glad tidings to the saints who have extinguished the fires of their natures. Give glad tidings. Bashirhum, right? They're going to have something mighty, amazing. Give the good news. Let's call it the gospel, the evangel, right? Give them the good news to these ones who have extinguished the fires of their carnal, mortal natures. Do you follow me so far, or are there any questions?
Yes.
Okay. So then who are these people? الذين خبت نار طبيعتهم. The people who have reduced or extinguished the fires of their natures. So فقالوا إلها ولم يقولوا طبيعة. This is a bit of a cryptic sentence. So who are the mukhbitin? They are the ones who have extinguished the fires of their natures, so they say a God, but they do not say a nature. What is he talking about? So Sheikh Al-Akbar, he has a very strange technique in this fuss. It's where he's just going to throw these sentences at you, and you're on your own. You have to figure them out, because this is a chapter of Hira. So what I think this means is, so they say, the mukhbitin, they say a God. They don't say a nature. If you look at any of the many things that idol worshippers worship, whether it's a tree, water, rock, stone, star, whatever it is, it all belongs to nature, right? So the lowest idol worshippers, when they're challenged by the Prophet ﷺ to say, name them, right? They're going to name them nature. قُلْ سَمُوهُمْ لَسَمُوهُمْ حَجَرًا وَشَجَرًا وَكَوْكَبًا. They will name that thing a rock, stone, tree, or star, right? But why do they do that? Because they're imagining their God is in that thing. And the imagination leads you astray if it's not trained. But if the imagination is trained, it's a mighty weapon, okay? But the mukhbitin, what do they have? They don't have imagination, they've got something else. What do they have? I want to put the question to you. What do they have?
Push, knowing, I don't know, taste.
Yeah. What does the taste come from?
Unveil. Allah is giving them the taste. I don't know. That's stuff.
No, but you said the word, but then you went back on it. You said unveiling.
Unveiling, yeah.
What's another word for unveiling? Witnessing.
Isn't it cash? Oh, it's a witnessing, yeah.
Shuhud.
Yeah, mashallah.
They're not imagining it, they're seeing it. Because when you tame the physical force of your nature, the flesh, when you do undergo spiritual ascetic exercises, if you succeed in them, fasting, staying up at night, vigil, taking yourself to account, muraqaba, muhasaba, denying yourself food and water, the spiritual world becomes unfolded and unveiled before your very eyes. So then they see Allah's disclosures, His tajalliyat. So they truthfully say, oh, that's a God. That's not nature. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the veil from your eyes, you see everything as being alive, and you see its divine nature. But its divine nature is one, it's from Allah, it's not separate from Allah. So they say, oh, a God, right? They look at the rock and they say, oh, it's a God. They look at the star, they say, oh, it's a God. They look at the tree, they say, oh, it's a God. That's what the mighty Neoplatonists have done, Plotinus, Iamblichus. That's what they've done. They've achieved success in these spiritual exercises, and they can see these things for themselves. And they have this incredibly sophisticated system of spirituality as a result of it. And what they have brought is astonishing, to the extent that we Muslims are still influenced by it to this day, actually. But anyways, that's a different story. So they see it, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes you to task for your claim based on what you see. So it's not unfair. Like when the idolater and the lower idolater in his imagination says, that's a God, God asks him why. Did you see him? He's going to say no, because that's from his imagination. He kind of sensed it, but the sensation and senses are weak. But the mukhbitin, he sees it. You're not taken to task for seeing what's before your very eyes, if it's true, if you speak the truth. So there is a story about one of Shaykh al-Akbar's teachers. He recounts this. Or at least, if it's not his teacher, it's by it's from a mighty wali. And it's a story that's transmitted to Shaykh al-Akbar about that teacher. His name is Qadib al-Ban, who was very powerful in the act of imagination. So what happened was Qadib al-Ban went to the Jumu'ah prayer, the prayer for the Friday congregational prayer. And so the Imam said Allahu Akbar and he began the prayer. And Qadib al-Ban was in one of the rows. Then halfway through the prayer, he gets up and leaves. And his student is a little bit nervous. He's asking, what's going on? So and he can't get up and leave. So the student finishes the salat with the Imam and all the people in the Friday prayer. And then he rushes out to find the Shaykh and said, Shaykh, what happened? Why did you leave the salat? He said, in fiqh, okay, in jurisprudence, isn't there a rule that if the Imam gets up and leaves the salat isn't valid? He said, yes, of course. He said, well, I saw the Imam gets up and leave, and so I got up and left, because now the salat isn't valid. So the student's like, what's he talking about? The Imam finished the salat. So the student sat and thought about it a little bit. Then it's as if an idea came into his head. And then he went to the Imam and said, Imam, can I just ask, were you thinking about anything in particular when you were praying? And the Imam's like, oh, what a strange question. Yeah, I've got a piece of land, and I was worried about the watermelons that are growing on that piece of land. So that thought came to my mind when I was praying, because his thoughts went away from Allah. So when Qadib al-Ban, who's min ahl shuhud, the people witnessing, he didn't necessarily see what was in his heart, but Allah gave him an unveiling in which he saw the man leaving the salat because his heart left the salat. So it's valid for Qadib al-Ban to leave the salat, he has to. But for the rest of the people, it's not valid. So you're taken to task for what you see. What is your witnessing? And Ibn Arabi has a lot to say about that, actually. There's many things to say about that. Let me check out the chat box. So why Ibn Arabi says mukhbitin and not arifin? They can be arifin, but then like there's many different kinds. So when you say the mukhbitin, you're talking about a specific kind of arif, a specific kind. So they are the mukhbitin, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned, this is the name Allah has given these particular group of people. So we follow the name that He's given. And so the Quran has like many different kinds of categories for awliya. And each one has their place. So this particular kind and category, they're called the mukhbitin. And yeah, Noor, the Hindu monks also do this in their practices as well. Yes. And it's obvious other religions have this too, which is why I made reference to the Neoplatonists. So it's really extraordinary. So we're at this point now, right? So what's happened? The Qawm Noor, the people of Noah, the people of Noah alayhi salam, they call these gods ilah as well, ilahan, but it's based on a false imagination. So there's a correspondence between them and the mukhbitin. Although it's not a very strong correspondence, it's a weak correspondence. But the mukhbitin, they see this thing that other people call a god. Qawm Noor, they don't see it. They know it's true. They know that the other things they see are the faces of God, the multiplicity, the multiple faces of God, but they don't see it. So it's as if there is a sorry, not a tafsir, there is an ishara. There is an ishara, an illusion here. And the illusion is that there should be glad tidings given to Qawm Nuh as well, because they should move from the station of not seeing to the station of seeing. That's what they need to move to. Just like the mukhbitin, right? So when Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, we said in the beginning that he loses his patience. وَقَدْ ضَلُّوا كَثِيرًا, right? So he complains to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقَدْ ضَلُّوا كَثِيرًا. So through their makr, through their deception, they have misled a great many people, right? أَيَّ حَيْرُوهُمْ فِي تَعْدَادِ الْوَعَهِدِ كَالْوُجُوهِ. So that meaning that the people of Nuh alayhi salam, or their chiefs, the chiefs have confused and bewildered the people. حيروهم في how? By multiplying the one. تعداد الواحد, it means to do multiplication of the one into faces. كالوجوه. Wujuh means faces. It also means aspects. والنسب and relations. So it's as if you're seeing the multiplication of God's face popping up everywhere. When you see that, you become confused, because you know that Allah Ta'ala is one, but then which face do you follow? That leads you astray. That leads you into bewilderment and confusion. So he says, because they did that, وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا ضَلَالًا. So increase them in being astray as well, right? But then what's happening here is that the Shaykh al-Akbar now, his brain works super fast. I don't know if you guys ever got this impression. His brain works extremely fast. So the way to read him in Arabic is, since his brain goes fast, and obviously and we have to speak with correct adab, his teachings come from divine inspiration, not from his brain. But nevertheless, his brain works fast. So because his brain works fast, we need to slow down our brains. Let me just do this. Yeah, So we need to slow down our brains. And you have to read slowly, you have to move slowly, because otherwise you get lost, since he's going fast, right? And he doesn't go fast because there's a deficiency in him. He goes fast because this is what this chapter requires. So he is moving in accordance with the adab that this chapter requires. So we have to slow down, right? But he's going to move fast now. So he says, so he's commenting on that. وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. So do not increase the oppressors, save misguidance. So وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Do not increase the oppressors. Then he comments on that. لِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That means do not increase the oppressors. Who are the oppressors? The ones who are oppressing themselves, right? الْمُصْطَفَيْنَ. The ones who are chosen. To what? Inherit the book, who are the first of the three. الَّذِينَ أُورِثُوا الْكِتَابَ أَوَّلُ الثَّلَاثَةِ. What's he talking about? Does anyone have any idea? What is he talking about?
Is he talking about Jews, Christians, and Muslims? No? That just came to mind because it says there are 3 groups. And I had the impression that there are 3 books at least.
So, let's see. This is from Surah Sad, right? If we look at the Arabic. But I've got the wrong one. Wait. This is Surah Sad, ayah 48,
sorry.
right? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I answer?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it's the Zalimeen because it's like the Mustafin, there are people that are chosen ones. There's 3 categories. فَمِنْهُمْ man, I think it's like the one who wrongs himself, and then فَمِنْهُمْ man يَسْتَبِقُ الْخَيْرَاتِ, and that is the best category. But there's 3 categories of chosen ones. Is that what he's talking about?
Znir, that is exactly what he's talking about. Thank you very much. But why can't I find the verse? Does anyone know what verse that's in?
38, 48. I'm taking it from the book, the English book. It's an
Yeah, but it's wrong.
It's wrong. I see.
Yeah, the citation is not right. Because Quran 38, 48, right?
30, 48.
Okay, that means I'm going to have to find the verse. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me see. Yes, it's called Zalimun li Nafsi, right? So
Would it be
Zalimun.
35? Maybe.
Yeah, by the way, I think you're right. Wait, let me just
I found it's 35.
Yeah,
32.
35. Yeah.
in Surah Sad, right? In Surah Sad, right?
I don't know,
So
whatever 35 is.
No, but I have to know the surah. So Surah 35 or verse 35?
Surah
Verse 32.
Of which surah? 35?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right. So let's do it. So Quran, but that's exactly it. Yes, 35. I remember now. So from Surah Fatir. Okay. Can you see the Arabic on the screen, or the Quranic verse that I'm putting up, or are you seeing the fuss?
We are seeing the fuss.
Okay. Then I'll just read the verse out loud. So this is the full verse, right? Then we granted the book, right? And notice the pronoun, we, nahnu. Then we granted the book, al-kitab, to those we have chosen from our servants. Some of them wrong themselves. Some follow a middle course, and some are foremost in good deeds by Allah's will. That is the great bounty. ذلك هو الفضل العظيم. ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. That is the greatest bounty. So in Arabic, it's ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه. This is what Ibn Ali talked about. ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله. ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. So Ibn Arabi is reading the Quran as Quran. What does that mean? He's not reading the Quran as Furqan. What does that mean?
It's about the Quran brings everything together in the sort of like that holistic kind of whole, and Nuh is the one who's the Furqan is the judgmental. Everything is separate, categorical, and without mercy, merciless almost. Sorry for the bad explanation. Waffly explanation. Sorry.
No, that's pretty much, thank you, Hannah. But I would say there is mercy in Furqan, but it's a different kind of mercy. Definitely Furqan has a great mercy in it, but it's separation, as you said. That's exactly it. Yes. And Quran, so Quran is to make connections. So you can read the book of God, our book as Muslims, the Quran. You can read Quran as Furqan, or you can read it as Quran. You can do both. If you read the book, our holy book, as Furqan, you keep things separate. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Muhammad, it's a specific man in history. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the ard, the earth, it's talking about the earth. But if you read the Quran as Quran, you make these internal connections all throughout the book. You make connections all throughout the book and to yourself. So, for example, when it mentions Muhammad calling out to the believers in the Quran, if you read that as Quran, that means anything in the cosmos that is good calling out to you, that's Muhammad calling out to you. That's to read that as a Quran. When Allah subhanahu mentions the ard, and we give life to the earth after it was dead, you're the earth. And someone else also mentioned that there's a proof for that in the Quran as well. You're the earth. Allah is talking about giving life to you, bring you back to life after you were dead in knowledge. That's called Quran. Reading the Quran as Quran. Does that make sense? It's to make these connections. But Furqan is discernment and criterion. It's to refuse to make those connections. But you're right, Hannah, to read the Quran as Quran, and Quran is the most merciful out of all the books, and there's no comparison with it. So you start making all these connections. That's why Qawm Nuh, the people of Noah, are in the station of Quran. They're in the station of making connections. They make the connection of divinity to their idols and to other things too. Like if you're the kind of person that just feels the divine presence wherever you are in the world, you see the divine presence in everything, you're someone that's closer to the station of Quran than Furqan, right? And that's a kind of a mentality, and that's a kind of a spiritual aptitude and affinity, which is really interesting. But back to the fuss. So the minute he says the word dhalameen, that connects to other verses in the Quran with the word dhalam or dhalameen. Immediately. We can't do that for other books, right? Because then we'll look crazy. Sometimes we do it, but not really. The Quran is the one book. Maybe other divinely revealed books too, maybe them too. The Christians have a very interesting practice when they read the Bible and they make these connections between the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? It's a slightly different practice. But with the Quran, you can do that. Because everything is placed with providence and carefully and with supernatural precision. So nothing's accidental. So when the Shaykh Al-Akbar says, وَلَا تَزِدْ الظَّالِمِينَ, that means, and he's seen this with spiritual vision, that means the dhalimun that are being talked about in that verse, which says, ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ, the one who's oppressing himself. So these ones, these oppressors, so Sayyidina Muhammad called them oppressors. Then Shaykh Al-Akbar says, but oppressors of themselves. Why are they oppressors of themselves? And it's a correct connection to make because God has mentioned this in another verse. Oppressing themselves. Why are they oppressing themselves?
There is a verse, I think, that says they think that they are plotting, but actually they're causing harm in themselves.
Yeah.
No.
If you refuse guidance, you're harming yourself. If you're refusing guidance, you are harming yourself. So you're oppressing yourself, right? But Ibn Arabi he flips something on its head.
Oh, okay.
So think about this. The polytheists, the associators, are oppressors of themselves, right? Because they have refused guidance. But then what does Ibn Ari say? In the verse, if you oppress yourself, what are you? It's the next
Chosen
word in
ones?
Arabic. You are
Mm.
chosen. If you oppress yourself, you are chosen. That means you're chosen. Chosen to do what?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are there any other categories? Are there only? I mean, what is there other than those three categories? I mean, is there anyone who's outside one of those categories? So do you know what I mean? So the people are either self-oppressors or of the category of the moderate or of the category of the good doer of good works, and those are the only categories. Is that right or not?
Okay, the only categories of what? That verse is talking about chosen people. So yes.
Of human beings. Yeah, of humans coming under one of three categories. Is that correct or not?
No.
No, right.
No. So what's happening? There are many categories of human beings. You find that throughout the Quran. What that verse, so it's 35, 32. So it's some sort of Fatir. What that verse is talking about is there are three categories of chosen people. Who is chosen? There are three kinds. The one who oppresses himself. The one who is middle in his course, and the one who rushes to do good deeds with the permission of God. All those people are chosen. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I'll ask you. Carry on with what you were explaining before. Bless you.
Sorry, but
So
Dr. Faris,
yeah.
isn't it the other way around? Like, it sounds to me like we're doing A, like all those who are A are B, but you're saying all those who are B are A, because like it's saying from the chosen ones is the one who does dhulm. But that doesn't mean every person who does dhulm to his nafs is chosen.
Oh
right?
no. I mean, I wouldn't infer that every person who does zulm to his nafs is necessarily chosen, but the Shaykh Al says it can be a connection, yes. And he says that it's a connection here. But actually, Zanira, if you take what Shaykh Al does quite literally, he's saying it. The person who oppresses himself is chosen. But to do what exactly?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking, in a way. I mean, we all oppress, astaghfirullah, I mean, as far as I know, that we all oppress ourselves, we all oppress our nafs, and we don't obey Allah, we don't do the right things, we don't, or etc., etc. So in that sense, all of us are self-oppressors.
In some
Or
manner.
some manner. Yeah, so do we not then all belong to the category of the chosen ones, possibly? That's what I was just thinking anyway. But I feel like I'm
no, you're right, because we have to think this through. And Zanir is right, we have to think this through. I imagine it would correspond to the degree of your oppression. So yes, we oppress ourselves, so on and so forth, by not being perfect, but we're not like those people. And we're not like major criminals. So for us lower mortal human beings, you're probably chosen to be what? To be the children of Adam, to be the inheritors of his khilafah, to be the stewards of God on earth. So everyone has that inheritance in some manner. But if we look at the real oppressors who oppress themselves in a big way, they're chosen to do mighty things. So for example, people of Noah, what are they chosen to do? They are chosen to الذين أورثوا الكتاب, right? So those who inherit the book, they're the first of the three, right? So فقدمه على المقتصد وَالسَّابِقُ. So he put them before the middling and the ones who rush to do good deeds. So they're all chosen to inherit the book, to inherit what is the book? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. So that means the Quran. And what is the Quran? It's the book of existence. هو كتاب الوجود. It's the book that tells you what the realities are. So these ones are chosen to inherit the book of existence and to know it. Sorry, someone had their hand up, but then I didn't come to you. Who was that, please?
It was me. I was thinking about Shaitan for some reason. But now that you mentioned this, I was thinking about sinners and about a hadith that Qudsi, I think, that says if you didn't sin, God would destroy you basically and put people that sin, because in some ways the name Al-Ghafur, Al-Ghafar should be manifested, right? And
Correct.
without sinning and without oppressing ourselves in a way, these attributes cannot play their part in a way.
Role. Good. Good. Thank you very much. That's exactly it. This is called ta'til al-sifat, making the attributes inoperative. That's exactly it. Thank you so much, Irvina. Yeah.
And I was thinking about Shaitan because in the end of the day, to me, it appears that his role, it was written by God to happen what happened between Shaitan and Adam and Eve. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all this life, and all this magnificent universe with its lows and ups. So it is mind blowing to some degree, but yeah, this is what I was thinking. I don't know.
Irvina, you have hit the nail on the head. That is an extremely important point. No, you've hit the nail on the head. You see, that's why Iblis is a holy messenger, but not in the prophetic sense, a'udhu billah, but in a different way, because Iblis's job as a messenger of the shayateen is to make you grow. His job is to make you grow, and if you take his messages the right way, your spiritual growth skyrockets and soars. If you take his messages the right way. That's why, from a certain perspective, he's holy. And that's why, Sayyidina Amuli, Haider Amuli, the Shia Araf Billah, he said, this is why we love Fir'aun and we love Iblis. Because for that reason, and you have to love them. I mean, you don't have to. But like the actual spiritual person, the spiritual wayfarer who's serious about his or her spiritual progress has to love them as manifestations of God's divine attributes of majesty. That's why you love them. But not everyone has to do that, obviously. So that's exactly it. Yeah, sorry, Noor, go ahead.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I was going to say what Ervina was going to say. Me and her have quantum connection, I guess, in the brain. But yeah,
Yes.
Adam alayhi salam's dua, Iblis also does wrong, and Allah had written that he will go wrong, and Adam alayhi salam's sin also. Allah had written that this will happen, but the difference was Iblis just went burning and not accepting the plan of Allah, whereas Adam alayhi salam seeked forgiveness immediately. So about the oppressing of the nafs, is it also not the dua of Musa alayhi salam after he punches someone and the person dies? correct me if I'm wrong, my Arabic is not great. I do English translation. Allahumma zalamtu nafsi faghfirli, meaning I oppressed my nafs and I seek forgiveness.
You know, Noor, it's so great you mentioned that. Thank you for mentioning it. Yes, exactly. He oppressed himself. So he belongs to one of the chosen people. That's exactly it.
Yeah, because
MashaAllah.
he killed someone and he doesn't say I killed someone. He says I oppressed my nafs and I want forgiveness.
Yes, that's incredible. Because then you've also got Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. That's astonishing. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
So by the way, Hannah, I don't want to get into politics, but what you're saying, that's exactly who he is. This monster. So he's a monster, okay? If you look at it from the eye of Furqan, he's a monster, okay? If you look at it from the eye of Quran, he's a great messenger who's bringing hundreds of thousands of people into the maqam of the shuhada. Yes or no? That's what he's doing. And he has no idea that that's what he's doing. And he'll probably be one of the people of hell. Obviously. But putting that aside, he's one of the great messengers. Yes, because he's bringing how many people into the maqam of the shuhada? This is how the Arifin see it. I was with my own sheikh one night and we were complaining about this. And then I think he did something like a sigh. And he's like, yeah, ikhwani, why are you being kuffar? And why don't you be Muslims? And so they say that because they're in the station of witnessing shuhud. And if you complain about Allah's decree, that's a form of covering, which is what kufr is. So he says, what's happening is that this civilization that was built by Rasulullah for the past 1,400 years, this is called Hadarat al-Islamiyya. This is the civilization of Islam. Allah is now tearing it apart. He is bringing it down so that he can build Hadarat al-Ihsaniyya, which is the civilization of Ihsan, which is the civilization of a whole different cycle of humanity that witnesses God. Because what is the maqam of Ihsan? Abdullah كأنك أنت تراه. Worship God as if you see him. So that's how my sheikh sees it. So yes, because this monster you're talking about, Hannah, he has like no power. Only Allah is the one who brings hundreds of thousands of people into the maqam of the shuhada, yes or no? All he can do is, according to Ash'ari Aqidah, it's called iktisab. He can only do kasab of his own sins. He can only acquire the sin. He can't actually do anything. So you'll come across this in Fas Musa, in which Sheikh Al-Akbar says that when we talk about the tyrant, the evil tyrant Fir'aun, the oppressor, when he crucifies the sorcerers, what is that in reality? It's the divine essence acting fi surah batila, in a false form, to raise the stations of the sorcerers. That's what Fir'aun is. And it's called surah batila, the false form, because you put crucifixion in its wrong place. Like you put killing and execution in its wrong place. But the meaning is sahih. The meaning is Allah is raising their stations. That's what it is. No more, no less.
Who said to know God is easy?
Yeah, who said, right?
You know,
So yeah.
I really love, that ayat that says, when we witness God basically in the primordial world, in Azal, and say, yes, you are our Lord. The word there is Bala, right?
Bala, yes. Bala shahadna, yes.
To me, in Albanian, I think that it's in Oriental languages as well. Albanian bela is trouble. So whenever I read it, like the yes, to me it sounds like trouble as well, and that's it, I guess. We said yes, and we got into trouble.
Very interesting, Verena. Very interesting ta'wil. Subhanallah. That's food for thought. But coming back, so he says, okay, so the Zalameen, they're the ones who are chosen to inherit the book of existence. They're the first of the three, because you look at the order of the categories. It's the Zalameen, then it's the Muqtasid, then it's the Sabiq. It's the oppressors, then they're the middle group, then it's those who outstrip, the outstrippers.
Oh, sorry.
So God, go ahead.
Sorry, just what you said, it's reminded me like of the pyramid or the triangle. The base is the oppressors, and they go up, and you can only. This is like this whole discussion we just had about. You can only go up by comparison through those. Reflection of the different levels, because you can't know what's good without seeing the evil, and the evil is he's giving the lesson, the base oppression. So the ones at the top really need to be grateful for the ones at the base who are taking on all of that dhulm and sin, so that they can actually get up to the top. So that's kind of like anyway, something like that just came to me. I don't know.
The Sheikh Al-Akbar, so building on that, Hannah, the Sheikh Al-Akbar takes it even one step further. And he says that in describing one of the ulum, one of the sciences you find in the Quran, is that the people we consider bad from all walks of life, not just the monster you mentioned, but just like anyone who's bad, they are, in a sense, protectors of God. They're his awliya from a different angle. Why? Because they take on the bad attributes upon themselves, and so that it's not put on God, because it has to have a locus of manifestation. So they are his awliya from a different perspective. So they are awliya too. And so the Shaykh says that means that's good news for them, because that will be good news for the mercy that will eventually reach them and every single person in the world, even if it comes later. Now he says it more eloquently than me, so I have to find the exact sentence. But that's what he says too. So yeah. Now he says in the verse, he puts the oppressors before the muqtasid, the middle group, and the outstrippers. Why is that significant? Because nothing is accidental in God's book, right? No word chosen is accidental, and therefore no order of words. So it's called permutation. The order of words is not accidental either. He put the oppressors right at the top, or at the bottom of the pyramid, as you said, Hannah. But he placed them first before the other two groups. So they're higher. The highest group are the oppressors themselves. They're the highest ones. Hyder Amoli vehemently disagrees with that interpretation. But this is the Shaykh Al-Akbar's interpretation. He said, for Hyder Amoli says order is of no consequence in the Quran. But Shaykh Al-Akbar says no. If Allah chose that order, it's because they're better. So فَقَدَّمَهُ, he put them forward, he put them first, ahead of the ones who are in the middle and the outstrippers. So these oppressors themselves, Sayyidina alayhi salam, pray to Allah to increase them, not except in further, and to be further astray, and in further misguidance. So then, what does Shaykh Al-Akbar says? So accept misguidance means except in confusion. Illa hayra. Except in hayra. So when a prophet like Sayyidina Islam is angry and he prays against his people, asking for their destruction, there's an inner meaning to that. Because the inner reality of that is you're actually asking Allah to unveil to them the reality of things. So you're asking Allah to increase them in hayra. But hayra, which is perplexity and bewilderment, is the highest Sufi station. It's the highest saintly station. So in asking for their destruction, he's asking for them to reach the highest station. These ones who are the first of the three groups to be chosen to inherit the book. So the connection that he's making in the Quran, this dizzying connection of spider webs, makes sense. It's not random. And it's not random because Rasul gave him the book. If you remember, these aren't really Shaykh al-Akbar's words. This is the writing of Rasulullah, if you believe in that. So then he says, the way Sayyidina Al-Islam asks Allah to increase his people in confusion, that's because they're proto-Muhammadans. They have the heart of the Muhammadans. That corresponds to the actual Muhammadi saint who says, Zidni fika what? Zidni fika tahayyura. Increase me in bewilderment of you. Right? And that connects to the other verse, which is about hayra. You see, he's not explaining these verses. He's just drawing connections like a mosaic, M-O-S-A-I-C, because he's going so fast. كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا. Right? Every time the lightning strikes, it lights up for them and they walk in that light. But when it gets dark, they stop and they stand up straight. This light is the light of God's self-revelation, his tajalli. When the light of his tajalli shines, they walk in the tajalli. But when the light of his tajalli stops, they're left in darkness and in confusion, and they stop. That is bewilderment. That's the station of the Muhammadans, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Muhammadans a series, a flurry of self-disclosures, tajalliyat, one after the other. And that leads them in perplexity, which is the highest station. The wali who is not in perplexity, he's sure about himself, he's sure about what Allah is, that's not the highest station. If there's like no perplexity. But if there's a wali who is sure about his perplexity, he's certain that perplexity is the right way, he's the highest wali. So Sayyid Abdul Ghani Nabusi, the commentator on this fuss, says that al-hayra, hidayah. What does that translate into?
Hayra is guidance.
Perplexity is guidance.
Correct and correct. Perplexity is guidance. Which I think says something about the way we view other people in this world, right, as Muslims. Because we can sometimes be judgmental about people who are confused and lost. Because what are you saying about God then, who those are his servants and his creations? Like, they're lost, so they're stupid, right? Is God stupid? Na'udhu billah. So with Shaykh al-Akbar's Wahdat al-Wujud, you really learn to revere everything. You really learn to revere everything. Because everything is a manifestation of God's wujud. And the revelation of his will. So then he says, فَالْحَائِرُ لَهُمْ الدَّوْرِ. So the stupefied, by the way, I have to mention that the real oppressor of himself, in the saintly sense now, because there's different kinds we've been talking about, is the one who refuses himself pleasures and water and food, things that are completely halal, but he refuses them in order to achieve higher stations. Okay, that's the real oppressor of himself, who is first before anyone else. Okay, the one who's doing spiritual exercises to reach higher spiritual stations. So the one who's bewildered, الحائر لهم الدور. They have the circular movement, right? They go in circles. والحركة الدورية, and they have the circular revolution, right? Just like planets. حول القطب, around the pole. فلا يبرحوا منه. So they don't leave him. They stick around him. And now he's showing you an image of circularity. Now, he doesn't talk about this, but I really feel like this is not mentioned explicitly in the fuss. It's just a guess on my part. But it's like I'm seeing the image of a whirlpool. So you see the people of Nuh drowning in this whirlpool, going in circles, right? And you see that image before your very eyes, right? As they go in circles, whether it's in the whirlpool or they're going in circles around the multitude faces of God, that they see the multiplication of divine faces that they see around them because of the prayer of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, right? They're going in circles because of that. But then if you go in circles, it's around a pole. And anyone who, now the other image that's being created here is the image of a circle, which is the circumference, and a center, a dot in the center. The kutub, the pool is in the center, and that's the absolute reality, al-haqiqa al-mutlaqa, or al-haq al-mutlaq, the absolutely real, the absolute real, or the absolute reality. All divine faces revolve around that pole, so you never leave it. That means whichever point you are in the circle, there's no distance, there's no variation in distance between you and the pole. Everyone is close to God. You can't go further or closer to God. The Shaykh Akbar complains about this, about one of the awliya who made this mistake. And so I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, but I've written about it. But there was someone, I think it was Imam Shibli alayhi salam, and someone was asking him, like, what's the hardest kind of sabr? What's the hardest kind of patience? And so he said, is it patience in God? And I said, no. Okay. Is it patience going to God? No. Okay. So he says, okay, so what kind of patience is hard patience? He says, it's patience going away from God. And Shibli, he screamed so loud that he fainted. Like, you really have to be amazed at the states of these saints. And so Sheikh Al-Akbar says, what is he talking about? That came from his imagination. Why? There's no going away from God. You can go away from his pleasure, and you can go away from his wrath. Yes, that exists, but you can't go away from God. What does that mean? No verifying person saint, and we never think that we are better than the awliya. Never, na'udhu billah. But you can't ever go away from God. Never. That's like a mistake in verifying the realities.
Well, it's the distance, or it's the perceived distance from God, isn't it? It's how you perceive your relation to God, how that sense of being far from Him, even though you're not, but you think you are. Yeah, that's what makes.
Yeah, but you know, Hannah, what do people mean by that? They mean I'm far from.
You're not very, for example, you're feeling you're like you might feel completely abandoned.
Right.
God doesn't love me. I have no, or once I might have had a lovely, wonderful experience of nearness, and now I don't have it anymore. What's happened? Where's it?
Yes.
Kind of yeah.
Yes. 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 You're far from all the good stuff you used to enjoy, right? That's what you're far from. But you're not far from God. There's no such thing.
No, of course not. Yeah, but that's what I meant. How you might, but you can feel that you are, because that's how you're experiencing it.
That's how you're experiencing it. Yes. Yes. So it's impossible. That means the things that you fall into, the experiences that you don't like, one has to remember that's God too. Don't forget that. That's God too. And so this person who's going in circles, he's in the higher station. Now, contrast that with صاحب الطريق المستطيل المستطيل المائل. look at the person who is going in a straight line. مائل خارج عن مقصود. This person is going in a straight line, and he's going farther away from his goal, the goal that he was seeking. على مقصود طالب ما هو فيه صاحب خيال إليه. He is going far away from his goal, from what he was seeking, in a similar manner to the companion of imagination. Because there's no straight line. We come from God, we go back to him. What's that? That's a circle. We come from God, no. We're going back to God, no. What is that? That's a circle. But when you have your own personal goal, right? That's the maqsood, طالب ما هو فيه. You're seeking what you are already in, right? You're seeking what you're already in, just like the possessor of imagination, right? So this is like in your imagination, it's made up. غايته, his end goal, right, is فله, so he has an end goal, right? He has an end goal, غايته. فله من وإلى, he has a from and a to, وما بينهما, and what's in between the two. But those are your own personal goals. There's only one from and to, from God to God. And when it's the same denominator, God, God, that's a circle, no? So the person who thinks he's trying to follow divine guidance in a straight line, that's not the highest station. And so you've got this example by Afif ad-Din Talamsani, who's commenting on this passage, and he says it's like a father who is carrying his baby toddler on his shoulders, and he falls into a swarm of people, and a large crowd that are rushing forth. And when the surge breaks forth, the child is on top of the father, but all he sees are the other people. He cries out loud, bawling for his dad. But his father is just right beneath him, with him all along. So you see the surge of multiplicity in existence. You're like, God, where are you? Right there. He's right there. Irvina.
This is a huge topic. In practice, I was wondering why do we experience this? There must be a reason, right? Like Shibli, Hazrat Shibli in this case,
Yes.
experienced that, and there must be a reason why God made him feel like that. And in very like day-to-day life, sometimes when things happen outside of us, no matter if they are true or not, they become realized in a way in how we perceive and how we feel, right?
Yes.
Why is it less real in a way, quote unquote real, when it's experienced in the imagination and it takes that much energy from us in a way? Now, I know that I'm talking with in duality, but it's very, very complicated for me to understand it in practice. I can understand it in abstract way, but I cannot put it in the earth. Somehow.
Yeah. I mean, you are reading the greatest mystical text of all time. So yeah, this is very true. You're looking into the gems and the fruits, the treasures of someone, and this is his life's work, because the Fusus Al Hikam was the last book that he wrote. So these are things that you put into practice over the years. You're definitely not going to get it in one night. And yet, me trying also to put this into practice, still years and years, I don't get tired of it. because it's rewarding and it just keeps on giving and giving and giving. But it might also seem so counterintuitive, Irvina, because we have the veils over our eyes, and these awliya have their eyes unveiled.
True. I've had some conversations with someone who says these kinds of things, and to me, that person appears so cold with what's happening in the world, with what's, it just appears as a senseless man. And while he is saying that, okay, but we are talking about absolute truths and stuff like that, and I'm like, no, you are just making everything so abstract, and we are not that abstract. And I had this trouble with his narrative, and I think that we are touching something upon this. And I know that there is some truth to it, but I cannot just, yeah, it's hard for me, at least in this stage. Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. You might find other chapters in the Fusus a bit more relevant to you because each one is different. Because you're getting the quintessence of each prophet. Because this is the quintessence of the knowledge of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. And then the quintessence of a different prophet might be something else. But yeah, he's talking way above our levels, isn't he? Ibn Arabi. He's talking way above our levels. And yet here we find ourselves drawn to it, nevertheless. It also depends on who the man is that you're talking to. Like maybe like he actually doesn't know anything. And so when you describe like abstract things, it's because people don't actually know what's going on, right? It's weird for Ibn Arabi because he knows everything by direct taste and witnessing. That's why his writings are so warm and close to the heart. But he uses abstract language.
Mm.
He uses abstract language, but everything he's talking about is close and warm, is close to the heart and warm because it speaks to personal experience. But if we can't see that immediately, it's because he's talking about above our level and it takes practice. So yeah, don't be put off by that. Just persevere. There's more to be gained from other places too.
I was just thinking of that as well, because when you look at the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew obviously more of this than everything, but he was so human in his, I'm gonna cry, in his manner and his behavior. Like for example, when Sayyidina Khadija died, he cried so much that the Sahaba thought that he was going to die of grief. When his son Ibrahim died, he cried. When so he had, so somebody who's just cold and feelingless is not the example. We can look at our Prophet ﷺ, who knew all of this and who would have been able to say all this, but he didn't necessarily say it anyway. Astaghfirullah, sorry about that. And he had that warmth that you're talking about as well. Astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
And those are always the highest people. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to say that you got my point. You really understood what I was saying, because whenever I would have these conversations, and especially about the genocide in Gaza, like when we had these conversations and that person was trying to make all the things abstract again, I was like, just stop now, because that's just too much. And maybe it was because I was feeling pain, but I really cherish Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, that he is so grounded, even in his life, even in his explanations. I'm not saying that he is not talking about higher realities. Of course not, and even the Fusus, like I have no doubt that it's from him, but and I'm not saying that Ibn Arabi is being like this, but just I'm trying to grasp what is being said, and yeah, I'm experiencing maybe confusion as basically the fuss is about.
You know, so that's why I stay away from those topics, because I'm not worthy to speak about those topics, because when someone speaks about a topic that he has no right to, the discrepancy shows. And so, like, for example, when someone is talking about that issue in an abstract way, yes, you feel a repulsion. And my own instinct would also to say stop talking. Because how much of a disservice are you doing to those actual people? Like, you're not giving them their haq when you're talking. So please be quiet. And that's how I feel too. So I stay away from those topics, personally speaking, unless you're someone who can really, really do justice to them, because they deserve to be spoken of in a way that merits their station.
But thank you that you are discussing these with us. We cherish it, so thank you so much.
No, thank you for bringing that up, and I fully agree with that as well. That would have been like your fitra, like your inner instinct, noticing that too. So anyways, yeah, I think we should probably wrap up since we're over time, but I wanted to maybe finish this paragraph. I mean, I guess we can stop here. I think like we've come to a good place. So we'll read this paragraph again next time. Are there any questions? So let me just stop the recording.
I had a